Welcome to Texas Rye Whiskey Studies for the National Rye Tournament, episode number 19. And this is tournament match number 7 as we begin the second round of the under 90 proof edition. Coming to you from Fort Worth, Texas, where it is currently 90 degrees. Thunderstorms are in the area, so it might get exciting. This is Tuesday, July 14th, 2026. Now, what I'm doing with this tournament is sampling and reviewing rye whiskeys one at a time. And then after every second whiskey, I give them a head-to-head match to see which one I like the best. So far, we've studied 12 whiskeys, and the 6 winners are Basil Hayden Dark Rye, Basil Hayden Malted Rye, Jim Beam, 3 Rangers, Corsair Dark Rye, and Lot 40. So in this second round of the tournament, I'm going to have 3 head-to-head matches of these 6 whiskeys so that I end up with the top 3. What are the rules? I judge these whiskeys on their history, bottle, label, marketing, composition, appearance, nose, taste, mouthfeel, burn, finish, and of course, price, value, and availability, but also flexibility. Flexibility means neat, iced, or cocktail. Now, the deciding factor is this. If I was offered these 2 whiskeys 5 nights in a row, but I could only have one each night, which whiskey would I choose at least 3 times out of those 5? So it's all about drinkability. Now, in this contest, I drink these whiskeys out of blacked out glasses here to see if I can figure out which is which, but also primarily so I can make an evaluation on which one I like the best without looking at them. Because sometimes you can tell a whiskey is one brand because of how it looks versus the other brand. And if you have any kind of an emotional attachment or preconceived notion, that can affect your judgment. So I don't want to see the whiskey, I just want to taste it. Now, if sometimes the winner of the contest will get a cocktail. Okay, today's contestants are Jim Beam Rye, 80 proof, Basil Hayden Dark Rye, 80 proof. History. The Basil Hayden Dark Rye was released by the James B. Beam Distilling Company in 2017. So it is only about 10 years old as a product. And the Jim Beam Rye over here has a bit of a murky history. Some trails supposedly lead back to the 1930s, others to the 1940s. This edition was supposedly the reformulated edition and released in 2015. But again, researching this one proved a little bit tougher than I had assumed. So which of these has the better history? Well, I think the Beam has a heritage that goes back further, so I'm going to go with the Beam for the win, but it's close. Bottle, label, and marketing. Okay, let's compare these bottles. The Basil Hayden put a lot of money into their bottle. You know, they're the ones with the belt buckle here. Nice label, nicer bottle. So and the price for this whiskey matches the fancy bottle and label. Marketing, though, you would think the Jim Beam would have some marketing, but I haven't really found any. And, you got more of a basic standard Jim Beam bottle here, kind of a square bottle and the white label. Now, one thing about the Beam is it does have the green cap and some green on the label, and the Basil Hayden does not. And green typically, though not legally, represents rye whiskey. So, there's that going for the Beam. But all in all, the fancy bottle, the fancy label, the belt buckle, I think Basil Hayden wins this one. A little bit of overachievement, maybe. But again, you pay for it. So, appearance there for the bottle, label, and marketing. Basil Hayden. Appearance of these whiskeys, when you look in the bottles, clearly the Basil Hayden is very dark. I mean, that's you can't see it necessarily on camera maybe, but There's a reddish tinge to that, and we'll get to that here in a little bit, but it's clearly darker than the Beam. And I prefer darker whiskeys. I think a lot of people do. So Basil Hayden wins the appearance contest. Composition. The Jim Beam's mash bill is not disclosed. One source stated that the 90 proof edition had a 55% rye, 35% corn, and 10% barley mash bill. And I think that might be close to it, but again, that was not an authoritative source. It was, one of the internet reviewers that I saw, and I don't know how he got that because it's not posted on the Jim Beam website. The age is likely 4 years or above because it says straight rye whiskey on the bottle. Kentucky straight rye whiskey there at the top. And so that means that with no age statement, it's got to be 4 years old. So the Basil Hayden also does not have an age statement. And its mash bill is a bit more complex. I don't have a complete mash bill, but I do have something about the major components that's very interesting. It's not listed as a straight rye. Okay. Legally speaking, this is not a rye whiskey at all under the American law. And that's why it says dark rye. If you add a modifier to the term rye other than straight, it changes the legal definition. So what makes this an illegal rye? It's not necessarily illegal, but it's just not a legal rye. Well, it's a blended rye, blended with Canadian rye from Alberta Premium, Alberta Distilling. And so you've got Canadian stuff in here and you've got Kentucky stuff in here. But wait, there's more. The financial arrangement with Canada, as far as their taxes go, and import-export duties into America and all that stuff, there's a provision, a legal provision within Canadian whiskey that allows up to 9%, I think it's actually 9.09 or something like that, of other stuff to be in the bottle. Okay, and it can still be called whiskey. What is the other stuff in here? Port wine. But here's where it gets interesting tax purposes wise. The port wine is a California wine. Thus, when they export the Canadian whiskey into America, because it has an American product in it, you don't have to pay the higher taxes. Something like that. It gets complex. So this has got an interesting composition. So I'm going to give the win to Basil Hayden for their cleverness and their complexity here. Why not? Versatility, flexibility. Both of these are great sippers neat, but they're also both 80 proof. And I doubt their viability under ice, although I know most people like ice, but for me, I think 80 proof is a bit weak for ice. It would dilute it down too much. Now, I've not made cocktails with the Basil Hayden because it's so good in its natural state. The Jim Beam, I did try a highball with Sprite and a lemon slice, and it was very refreshing on a hot day. But I've not made anything like an old-fashioned with either of these. So I'm going to say for flexibility, versatility, this might be a tie. Price, value, and availability. The Jim Beam is available everywhere for about $16. Okay. The Basil Hayden is a whopping $40. So over twice the price for the Basil Hayden. What about the value? Is this worth the extra money? Well, I tend to think so. I will definitely buy both of these again, but I have a preference for the Basil Hayden. And so, yeah, I think the price is worth it. So Basil Hayden for the win. It's not going to be quite as available, I don't think, as the Jim Beam, but at the stores where I shop at, it's available. All right, so let's get to the whiskey itself. Now, what I do is I start on my left and nose, and then go to the one on the right. Now, these glasses are blacked out. So again, I don't know which is in which because I mixed them up. However, on the bottom is a number. Basil Hayden is number 1. Jim Beam is number 2. You'll be able to see the numbers. I won't. And this way, keeps me honest, and I can guess which is which and which is the winner. Very whiskey-like smell. So some sweetness. Not really getting any rye. Some barrel nuts, though. This is a pleasant nose. A little bit of caramel. Even vanilla. So that's a very pleasant nose. I'm not getting any rye spice, though. If I had to guess, I'm thinking that's the Jim Beam, but I don't know. Glass number 2 is what I think that is. Let's see. I'm not getting much on the nose here. That's odd. Maybe. A little bit darker nose. Maybe just hints of some fruit. Darker sweetness. If I had to guess, I'm going to say that's glass 1 and the Basil Hayden. All right, so now the noses are close to being equal. Can't really tell who's going to win that one. So I'll call that a tie. Let's go in for the taste on the left. And that is lovely. That's really a very good whiskey. And I get a little bit more of the rye notes there now. A little bit of caramel. So this is not going to overpower you with the rye. On the finish, a little bit more of the rye. It's a touch thin, which at 80 proof you would think. Not really much of a burn going on there. All in all, though, that's tasty. So, let me rinse my mouth out. All right, the next glass on my right. A little bit better mouthfeel. I'm getting some of the port wine. So I'm really thinking this is glass 1 in the Basil Hayden. Not much of a burn. Wow. Which one do I like the best? As good as both of those are, wow, I'm leaning towards the one on the left. It's got more of the rye flavor going on. It's not as rich as the one on the right, but the one on the right has got some of that red wine influence. I mean, I'm really thinking this is glass number 1, Basil Hayden. Oh, it's good. But if I'm looking for a rye, I'm not really tasting the rye there. Let me go back to the one on the left. Yeah. See, now I'm drinking this after that second one. Tastes even thinner. Right, I'm getting the rye spice. All right. I think for the nose, it was a tie. Taste, I prefer the one on the left. Mouthfeel, burn and finish. Neither of them had much of a burn. Mouthfeel, the one on the right, surely won, but finish, the one on the left won. So that's also a tie. Great. Here I am. It's going to come down to the taste, and I prefer the one on the left. So I'm going to choose the one on the left as my favorite between these two, and I'm going to guess that this is glass number 2 for Jim Beam. And I am correct. So Jim Beam is the winner. And I really didn't anticipate that. I really thought I was going to prefer the Basil Hayden, because that Basil Hayden is darn good. But if you're looking for that rye whiskey flavor, the wine in that Basil Hayden overrides the rye flavor. And so if you want rye flavor, this is it. So Jim Beam Rye for the win, and that is a come from behind. That surprises me. So now we're faced with, do we do a cocktail with the Jim Beam? So I've not really done one. I mean, I've done a highball, mixed drink. Let me go make a cocktail and see what happens. I'll be right back. And I'm back. So the winner gets a cocktail. Jim Beam is the winner. And the cocktail's an old fashioned, my favorite cocktail. So what I've got in here is 1 turbinado sugar cube, and then a couple of dashes of bitters. I use Angostura bitters, about 3 dashes of that, and a couple of dashes of Turkish tobacco bitters by Fee Brothers. And then there's a cherry in there, along with an orange peel. So this will be the first real cocktail I've had with the Jim Beam Rye. And that's very good. That's passable. Now, my only problem with this is that, again, the Jim Beam is a bit under proof, a bit thin. And so the flavor of the whiskey is tamped down quite a bit. But the end result is I consider this still to be a delicious cocktail. So it works with the bitters, the fruit, the sugar. So we have a winner there with Jim Beam. Now, the next competition that we're going to have will be between Three Rangers and Jim Beam Malted Rye. All right, this is the next competition. The problem with this competition is it looks like both of these are ghost whiskeys, meaning this is no longer in production. The Three Rangers is out of production. Jim Beam has done something with the Basil Hayden Malted Rye, and I'm not sure what it is they've done. If they just changed the name to Golden Rye, or if you go to their website and you go to the store, there's no more of the Malted Rye. There's the Golden Rye. And it's, according to the website, it's still 100% malted rye. So I don't know if they just changed the name or if they've actually changed something about the mash bill. I don't know. Maybe you know. You can tell me. That's coming up next on Texas Rye Whiskey Studies. This is Stab the Dragon Productions out here.